Hey lovelies, welcome back to Cookie Jar Unleashed. I am your host Cookie. I am super excited to have you guys back. On today's episode, we'll talk a bit of books and we'll also get to know author Terry Hooker. So sit back and enjoy the ride. Alright lovelies, let's get down to business by going over our available nows, pre-orders, and new releases. I recently released a book, Rebuilding Love, that's written underneath my S.E. Isaac pen name. That is a mafia/second chance romance. We also have Dangerous Affairs by J. Truesdale and S.E. Isaac. That is a mafia romance and releases July 31st. Unexpected Tides by Crystal St. Clair is a small town rom-com that is part of a standalone multi-author series. Fight Like a Girl Cancer Charity Anthology is a small town rom-com with multiple genres that is available for pre-order and releases October 17th. The Soul Healer by B. Groves is an urban fantasy and is available now. The Alpha and His Witch by J. Truesdale is a paranormal romance. Pre-order is available now. It releases August 23rd. Dragon Craved by Scarlett West is a paranormal romance and it's available now. Something More by Greer Riley is a contemporary romance. Pre-order is available now and it releases October 15th. Getting Witchy With It 2023 Anthology is a multi-genre anthology. Pre-order is available now and it releases July 22nd. Cuffs and Cuddles, a charity romance anthology. It is available for pre-order and that releases September 1st. Witch by Edward Rollins is a contemporary fantasy and that is available now. Rebirth by J. Truesdale and Michelle Savage is a paranormal romance and that is available now. Texas Heart, Blue Crescent Books Anthologies is a gay cowboy romance and paperback and ebook is now available. And there you have it, books, books, books. Authors, do you have a book that you want mentioned during a podcast? Or readers, do you have a favorite book that you'd love to get out there to other readers? Be sure to comment on my podcast, or you can also find me on social media. On today's show, we have a very special guest, so let's bring her out now. Yay! Would you mind doing a short introduction to those listening?
My name is Terry Hooker. I live in Central Florida right now. I'm originally from New Jersey.
Well, I'm super excited to have you on the show. Would you mind telling those listening, like what inspired you to start writing, how long you've been writing, and anything else you want to share with us?
I've always had stories in my head. I kind of thought everybody else had stories in their head too. When the pandemic hit, my business went under. I owned a cleaning business. And my sister encouraged me to write stories. I've always written academic or nonfiction stories. In fact, I've been published in a couple homesteading magazines, and my academic writing has been presented throughout the Southeast. I took the chance and applied for the Casket Girl story, and they accepted me, and I've been getting the stories out of my head ever since.
Is there a specific genre that you write?
I generally write paranormal. It usually has a touch of horror, a touch of humor, and a touch of historical fiction. I really like when there's a little bit of fear and a little bit of thrill and a little bit of fact. That's always my favorite thing about reading a book.
And what do you consider to be the hardest part about being an author?
The hardest thing about being an author for me is my business did pick back up. I don't clean anymore, but I am a pet sitter. I've always been a pet sitter, and it's really taken off. So finding the balance between farm life, I live on a farm, I have 2 teenagers, running my business, being a private tutor, and writing. I also have ADHD, so none of this can be done for a long period of time. So I have to set realistic goals for myself.
Wow, you definitely have your plate filled. Like, I don't know how you do it. Like, with all of that going on, like, do you have an author goal or dream?
My author dream is eventually to be able to just make enough money writing books and publishing books so that I don't have to get up in the morning and go walk other people's dogs.
And during your downtime, like, where could a reader find you? Like, what would you be doing?
When I'm not writing, I do live on a farm, so you can usually catch me fixing chicken coops or cleaning rabbit cages, collecting eggs, chasing my pig around because she likes to escape and run down to the neighbor's house. I do read a lot. I hike when I can. And I spend a lot of time with my kids, especially my daughter. She competes with horses, so we're all over the country competing with horses.
That is really awesome that you support her in doing that. Like, really, that makes you an amazing mom. So when you're not being an amazing mom, this is a question that readers often want to ask authors. Do you find time to read? Do you enjoy reading? Do you have your own private library?
I do enjoy reading. I don't particularly have a favorite place. I just want to be someplace quiet where nobody's going to talk to me. It's kind of hard when you live in a very full house like I do, and everybody here is pretty active. I have a home library in the sense that I have a lot of bookshelves in my living room.
Are you currently reading anything right now?
I am reading Haunted New Orleans, the complete series. It's an omnibus by Raven Salvador. I actually picked this book up at Flirty in Tampa. It's a signing that I went to. It was my first big signing, so that was pretty exciting. And it's really good. I'm really, really enjoying it.
While we have this window open as far as readers being able to see your perspective on being a reader, who's your favorite author of all time?
My favorite author of all time has got to be Elizabeth Peters, who also writes as Barbara Michaels and Barbara Mertz. She combines, depending on which author name she's writing under, Elizabeth Peters, she does historical fiction / mystery, where everybody except for her main characters are real historical figures, and it's real discoveries and everything. In Barbara Michaels, it's paranormal. It's a lot of fun. I actually read the Barbara Michaels books first. Barbara Mertz, she writes textbooks on Egyptology in ancient Rome, and I really enjoy those.
Okay, Terry, this next segment is going to be rapid fire. Try not to think too much about the questions, just give the first answer that comes to mind. Canada or Australia?
Australia, definitely.
Puerto Rico or Italy?
Italy.
Ski resort or beach?
Probably the beach.
Stonehenge or the pyramids?
Oh, that one's a really tough one, but I would have to say the pyramids.
Scuba diving or skydiving?
Would definitely be scuba diving. I don't want to jump out of a plane.
Tiger or koala bear?
Probably a tiger.
Polar bear or dolphin?
Dolphin.
Airplane or cruise ship?
Totally a cruise ship because I get to eat as much as I want, and I really like that.
Fair enough. City or country?
Country all the way.
Las Vegas or Paris?
Ooh, that one's tough. Probably Paris because I would be a once-in-a-lifetime trip.
All right, Terry, thank you for being a good sport about being in the hot seat. I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over to you. Go ahead and tell us a bit about the book you'll be reading.
Today, I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my book, Cleo and the Missing God. It's part of the collection called Tales from Forgotten Gods. They're stories from different forgotten gods from all over the world. Cleo is the first to be published out of these. The next one next year will be Coyote the Imposter. Those are the only two I have so far. I love Cleo. Cleo is one of my favorite characters. She's based off of my daughter Mo, from everything about her, from the fact that she doesn't brush her hair to the fact that she spouts random information when she's nervous, that she hates driving, she loves cats and collects them, and she reads nonstop. All of this is my Mo. I would consider this fantasy urban myth. There's no trigger warnings. It's not adult content. You can read it with your teenager. I wrote it about my teenager. Readers can buy it at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Apple Books, pretty much any place except Google Books right now. And if you head on over to my Facebook page, you can order a physical copy signed and I'll mail it to you. For some reason, Amazon is shipping it for an outrageous shipping price, and I can generally ship it for about $3. Cleo and the Missing God, Chapter 1. It was a perfect fall day in Savannah, Georgia. The breeze was warm with a hint of crisp to it. The smell of the falling leaves drifted in the open windows of the old Victorian house. Built in 1890, the Dickinson house had 4 fireplaces to cozy up to with a good book, one of which was lit. Stained glass windows graced the third floor, and a rounded porch on the second story allowed for perfect viewing of the beautiful city if one was inclined to head out and enjoy such things. Of course, the house itself was historical, like everything else in her life. Cleo sat comfortably on an oversized couch in front of a roaring fire, enjoying time with her cats and books. Not that she ever really did anything else, but she loved being in this space. She had on her favorite pair of worn jeans, a long-sleeved Gladiator hockey shirt, and her favorite Cheshire cat slippers. It was turning out to be a perfect day. The banging on the front door was not a welcome sound. It echoed through the house. Cleo tried to ignore it as she sank deeper into her copy of Red Land, Black Land by Barbara Mertz. Oh, she loved this author. Her fiction was often based on actual historical events. How wonderful was that? Cleo had her feet stretched out on the couch. Kronos lay between her knees, purring as loudly that she was sure it would vibrate the teacup off the antique table she had set it on. She reached for her still warm cup of Irish breakfast tea with the right amount of sugar and milk. Any other way of drinking hot tea was ludicrous. Cleo smirked at the thought, enjoying her sip from her favorite handmade mug with a bunny on it. The local farmers' markets were lovely this time of year, with the last of the fresh vegetables and all of the handcrafted pish-posh she could imagine. The knocking grew louder and more constant. With a sigh, she heaved herself off the couch and put a marker in the book. It was blasphemy to turn the corner of a page, and an insult to the author. She apologized to Kronos for her abrupt departure. Her cats were an awful lot like the Titan namesakes. They would lose their temper at the drop of a hat, so apologies when disturbing one. As she worked her way down from the third-floor reading room, her favorite reading room in the house, she ran across 9 of her 12 cats. Perhaps coming back as a cat was a new form of Tartarus. She would have to think about this more. The knocking turned into a constant banging. "I'm almost there. For Zeus' sake, keep your pants on," Cleo grumbled as she threw open the door to confront the obstinate soul who dared interrupt her reading. There stood a girl about 19 or so. She had long dark hair, the color of cedarwood, skin that glowed like moonlight. Her eyes seemed to roll through many colors, never settling on one, permanently in motion, like the girl herself. She wore a silver necklace with a sliver of moon hanging from it. Cleo knew the moon charm reflected the moon's present phase. She was quite familiar with the charm and the girl. "Hello, Cleo." The voice was no nonsense and brusque, much like the speaker. "Hello, Artie." "You know I hate it when you call me that," Artemis growled. "Yep." She spoke the word with a smirk. Artemis sighed and stepped past Cleo into the darkness of the front hallway. The wooden floor flowed through the whole house, distracting Artemis for a moment. Cleo could completely understand this feeling. The detail in the woodwork throughout made Cleo sigh every time she looked. The smell of Murphy oil soap was warm and comforting, but Cleo knew this wasn't the room to welcome her old friend. Would she consider Artemis a friend? She would have to ponder on that, too. "Follow me to the kitchen. I'll make tea, and you can tell me why you're decided to grace my doorstep after so much time. What's it been, Artie? 500 years or so?" "Something like that," said Artemis. She fidgeted so much it looked as though she were nervous. Artie never got nervous. She was the strong, confident god with all the answers. Or, if she didn't have them, she really never cared to let it bother her. She had her own thing going on, and Cleo always secretly admired her. They settled into the kitchen. Cleo set about making tea and taking out cheese and crackers for them to eat. It took her a bit to settle down. During that time, Artemis continued to fidget, which made Cleo nervous. "Did you know turkeys were once worshipped as gods? In 300 BC, by the Mayans." Artemis chuckled. "I see you haven't changed, still saying random historical facts when nervous." Cleo blushed. "Sometimes it's just when I'm uncomfortable. Nerves don't always come into play. I can't help it. Muse of history and all that." Artemis smiled. Her fidgeting had stopped, and she seemed to relax. "Yep, I remember. You were always my favorite. Actually, I came to you for your knowledge. I need help." The fidgeting returned, and Cleo knew, she just knew, she was not going to like what came next.
Okay, lovelies, you heard all the goodness, so be sure to click the link that's attached to this podcast and grab that book today. Terry, I want to thank you for being on the show. Is there any final words you'd like to say to the listeners out there?
I wanted to thank Cookie Jar Unleashed for allowing me to come out here. I want to thank my daughter Mo for always allowing me to use her as a model for everything from merch to characters. Special thanks to my husband, Mike, for supporting me in all of the crazy things I do. I'd like to send a shout out to Jenny L. Morris, E.S. McMillan, Natalie Nicole Bates, Andrew Dill. All of you guys have supported me in everything, and I appreciate and love you guys so much. Thank you for having me, and I look forward to maybe doing this again.
All right, lovelies, the time has come again to say goodbye. However, I again want to thank Terry Hooker for being on the show. I want to thank all of you for listening. And until next time, hugs and kisses.